Today we're going to be speaking with Nicolle Kopping-Pavars. Thank you for being here today with us, Nicolle.
Thank you.
Nicolle is a dear friend of mine, and I came to know her working in family law, and we worked representing some children. But today is more of about who Nicolle is and why she's so passionate and so compassionate and so wonderful at the job she does in being a helper, and just learning some of the story behind her story of what she's doing today. And so coming into this, we were saying there's so much here. So I think this is going to be the first of 1 or 2 or 3 episodes with Nicolle, because there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of wealth of experience that I think that you have to offer so many people. And you're so vulnerable and so compassionate, and you just really are very truthful with your experiences. And I think we all can learn and grow from that. So thank you for being here today.
When we first get together with anybody,
Yeah.
and we've never done this before, and now that we've had a series and you've actually taken the time to look at some of the episodes that we've had, and I'm always curious to know, before you even have gone through it yourself, just from that perspective, what did you see and what do you see? And what do you see as like the benefit of it? Why are you attracted to it?
Yeah. So just to be fair and honest, I haven't watched a full one from beginning to end, but I have watched a lot of them just to get a feel for each one.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew I wanted to do that. And the reason, what I got from whatever I saw, was that it's about creating communities from the heart, and communities that value people for who they are. And I think in this world we need connection, and in this world we need communities. And so often we go into communities because we think that's the community that we have to go into, or social events or social situations, because that's who we are, that's what we've chosen to be, and they're bad for us, and they teach us the wrong things. They create inner critics inside of us, and imposter syndrome inside of us, because we're now comparing ourselves to those communities. And we listen to podcasts with those communities. What I loved about this was it's the creation of a community of who you really are from the inside. And it's about that there are other communities that just value you for who you are, value your flaws, value your vulnerabilities, value your courageousness, value your courage. And for me, that was the nicest thing about this podcast, was people being real, not pretending to be who they think society ought to be. It's just, this is who I am, this is how I made it, this is my success. So I think it's the creation of a whole community, so people can go, yeah, there are more people like that. Maybe that community wasn't right for me, and I know that there are other people who think like me. So I think that's what really drew me to this podcast. We need to know that there are more people like us.
And there are.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton out there. I remember once I was doing a talk on work-life balance, and there was a group of...
There's such a thing?
Yeah, right? I just call it life, right? Forget work life. But the point was that when I was in this group of 10 people who I had no connection with, and I thought to myself, why would they even believe me about work-life balance? What have I proven to them that I know anything about balance?
Yeah.
They don't know me. And I got introduced as blah, blah, blah. But I'm sitting there in their shoes, and I was thinking, why would they believe
why are you the expert?
Yeah.
on balance? What have I shown them that I know about balance?
We've shown them only one part of our life that looks very balanced.
Right?
The picture we present to everyone.
Yeah.
And as I was thinking about my presentation, I said, okay, so I will not talk to them about balance. What I'm going to talk to them about are all the times that I lost my balance.
Yeah.
And that was my presentation.
Yeah.
And I said, here's my walk through all the times I lost balance, and what I learned from my moments of imbalance, and how I gained balance after that, and then how I lost balance again, and then how I gained balance and how I lost balance. And this is just what I've learned. That's all I can say. I can't say that I know something about balance.
But isn't it in weakness there is strength?
Yes.
And I actually wrote something about this today on my LinkedIn thing, or whatever it is. I'm trying this writing thing. Because I was talking to a colleague of mine just a few days ago, and there were some things happening, and we've all been through stressful, in times, and we're going through, we will. And we were chatting, and at the end of the conversation, she said, well, Nicolle, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I was like, no, that's not right. And I said, I don't want to be stronger. I want to be softer.
Interesting.
And she said, what do you mean? I said, because I think that's just such a bad philosophy. So just toss aside, suck it up, buttercup, move on, be stronger. Don't let whatever it is bother you. No, it's in your weakness that you got your greatest learning. It's in your weakness that you've got time to think about stuff and see how I want to change and how I want to evolve. And I don't want to be strong. I want to be empathetic and kind and flexible and see perspectives. And I can only see perspectives if I've kind of been there myself. And I want to be well-rounded and well-grounded. I don't want to be strong, because if I'm strong, that means I'm not allowed to be weak. And so I think sometimes we have to highlight that in vulnerability there's strength.
Exactly. I was just
But
thinking
that is
your weakness
exactly
is your
it.
strength.
Your weakness is your strength. So
Right.
I think those things where we'll go, oh, suck it up, or
Walk it off, as one of us
walk
told.
it off, or it will only make you stronger.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Well, it's like saying that, like courage and bravery means you have no fear. No, it's not that you have no fear. It's that you're just as afraid.
But you face it.
It's the
but then
conquering of it.
It's just moving. So it's not like I don't have weaknesses. I do have weaknesses, and then I keep going. And these are my vulnerabilities, and I keep going.
But my weakness and my vulnerability, if I see it in you, I'm creating a community. I'm creating, there are other people like me. It's okay to be that way. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to rise. I'm just over here right now. So, yeah. Isn't this fantastic?
I know.
So, Nicolle, thanks for joining us today. And I'm as usual, I'm curious to know. Yeah, we know about today, who it is, but I want to go kind of like back.
Okay.
And was it South Africa that you were born? Which city in South Africa? Just
Johannesburg.
Joburg.
It's not the sexy part of South Africa.
I've been to Cape Town.
That's the sexy part.
I didn't know there was sexy and unsexy
There, Cape Town is like amazing. It's beautiful.
Cape Town, I always say, when God created the world, he created Cape Town first. They went, this is good. And then he created the rest of the
Oh my
world.
gosh, come on. I know some really good folks in Joburg and Durban and Pretoria and the areas around that. How long were you there before you moved to Canada?
We emigrated to Canada when I was 29.
Okay.
We had our little guy, our first. So we emigrated to Canada. It was my husband, myself, my 1-year-old, and $5,000 in 2 suitcases.
Oh, okay. See, the Indian
that's how
people
we
say
came.
very similarly, but we
Yeah.
say $5 instead of 5,000. But it's probably the same amount. We just say 5. I came here with $5 in my pocket. Look at me now.
Well, I
Did
was
you have
wealthy.
family here?
Did I have family?
Yeah.
Here? I had cousins. So we actually went to move to, when you emigrate, you have to say in your application which city you're emigrating to. So our immigration papers and the stamp in like our whatever stamps we had said British Columbia, because we thought we'd go to British Columbia because apparently the weather was better and it was more temperate. And we're from South Africa, we know good weather. So, and then it was like, we don't know one person in British Columbia. And we had cousins at a very, very, one of my, he's like my brother from another mother. He's a cousin of mine and his wife too. And they were here. And I had my mom's cousin here. So we had more of family here. I thought we have to go somewhere where we just have to have
some roots,
some support and some some roots, exactly. So
So what got you to think of moving outside of the second sexiest part of South Africa?
it's not even the second, but
I
it's
know.
kind of the
Well,
armpit.
it's all right.
You know,
It's the capital, isn't it? Right?
Pretoria is the capital. Actually, we got 2 capitals in South Africa. Everything's different. And that's probably as much as I can tell you about my memory of the history of South Africa. But why did we come? So first of all, my husband and I had nothing. So we thought, well, rather go to, we knew we wanted to leave. There had been so much crime. my family had been involved in a terrible home invasion. I had been held up with a gun put to my head at the office. There was so much crime, and we thought, you know what, we want to raise a family, and we want to go to a country where it's going to be safe. And we have nothing here, so we may as well go start off with nothing there and start creating a future for ourselves. So it really was, I would say, the crime that we said it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we're going to do this like backwards then. Usually I start from the way back, and so I'm just going to keep going backwards then.
Okay.
But like I'm wondering, like as you're growing up, you've had like family around you in Johannesburg. There are fond memories there.
Yeah.
What's like your earliest recollection of your fondest memories with you? Like,
my fondest memories.
Where did Nicolle start? The very beginning.
So I had a great life in South Africa. Like I had a great childhood. Like I don't have any, but
what made it great?
Everything made it great. I had all my family around me. We had a big family. There were always family gatherings. I had a nanny who pretty much raised me. My mother was very involved. I came from a very involved family, but I had a nanny, her name was Paulina, who raised me as well. And for me, the best things at night, Lord, she must have loved me a lot, because after her hard day in our house, she'd go to a room and there I was wanting to sit with her and eat her food, and sit with her, and she just would. And probably one of, when I think about it, my grandmother was my hero, and she lived with us. So we had our house, and then we built on a sort of second part of our house. So I'm just getting such warm feelings when I'm thinking about it. So we had this sort of big family. Our house was here, and there was this huge big family room, and then my grandmother's house sort of was an extension of that. There was like a door, and and she used to lock that door. And I remember,
keep the warmth in.
Yeah. But I remember every morning I would rap on a door, let me in.
Is that right?
Let me in. And she would crawl out of bed and let me in. And then I would just snuggle with her in her bed. It was still all warm, but she was, the lessons I learned from her were unbelievable. And I'm just thinking of one now. We had this very, very long driveway. And so it was apartheid. I mean, I grew up in apartheid. I didn't know what was wrong. It was just people were separated. And, once when I said, why can't I go on Paulina's bus with her? And my mother just said, because you can't. I was like, oh, okay, because I can't. And that was it. And I was so upset because I really wanted to go with Paulina on her bus and I wasn't allowed to, So they used to have raids. They used to have raids, where where they would, because black people had to carry a pass with them, and if they were in an area where they weren't allowed to be, then they would be in trouble. So we lived next to this very big park, and we had just a fence, and then we had this long driveway. And I remember I was playing we called it a garden, which I suppose is a front yard in here. I know a garden is a flower bed here. I've learned that. So
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I remember there was a raid happening in the park right next to our house, and I saw this. I didn't know if it was a kid or not a kid, but I saw this person running up our driveway. And it was so exciting, like something was happening at our house. So I chased this person running up our driveway to see where they were going. Like, why were they coming? So innocent, right? Like, why were they coming? How
old were you this time?
I must have been about 8.
Okay.
8 years old. And, then the police are running behind this person. And so there's this person running.
So wait,
There's this person running up the driveway. Yeah. I'm looking, the raid's happening over there. Now police are running. I can see them running out of the park, this person. So I chase that person. So it's this person, me chasing that person, and then the police are up our driveway. And he flies into the yard and he goes... I knew he was sort of right at the back of the yard. My grandmother's kitchen door was sort of right at the end, at the back of, we had this sort of big back yard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else to call it, right? It was this concrete yard. And my grandmother had one of those stable doors, would open at the top and close at the bottom. And I see him fly around there. I see him fly around the, into the whatever. And I fly in beside him. There's my grandmother she's at her table and she's just cutting her vegetables or she's doing whatever. And it's like, I look around and she just goes, she goes like that to me. She just goes, she may have just given me the look.
Right.
You know, you get that
You
look.
knew what it
I
meant.
knew what it meant.
You knew to.
And the police officers arrive at the door and they said, we saw somebody come into your, or they didn't say it, they said, somebody just came into your house. We want to search your premise. She goes, oh, be my guest. Open up the door. Go in. And they go into search, and she quickly kicks her foot under the table, and she tells this guy to run out because the police were now inside searching her house. And she lets this guy go, and they come out and they come back and they say, we know somebody came in. And I'm just standing there, because like, I don't understand what's going on, My grandmother's lying to the police.
Right.
And I just saw him under the table. I didn't see him under the table. I saw him get out from under the table and then, leave. So like, I'm just confused. And like, she's now telling me to stand behind her because she's probably really scared about my little big mouth about, Granny, I don't know what's happening, So, but I kind of knew I had to keep quiet.
That's it.
And they come out and they say, we know somebody came into your house. She goes, well, you've looked. I didn't stop you from looking. Do you want to see under my table? Like, there's nobody here. And, they got very uptight. And she said, well, I didn't see any. I've been standing here the whole time. I didn't see anybody come in. And off they go. And I said, Granny, you lied. And she said, I didn't lie. I saved somebody's life. And like, for me, that was such a huge lesson. It was so simple, And so those are the kind of the memories that I had.
And it's just because something's the law doesn't mean it's right.
Rules, common sense.
And that's
or
what
a
it is
rule or whatever you want to call it.
And that's the thing, people think, well, if the law says it's right, but it might not be right for your family. In family law particularly, and there was, the law said that black people are bad and black people should carry passes around with them.
Right.
That's not right. So when I think of fond memories, I've got the usual beautiful memories, but for me,
that was a really,
it was a defining moment of who
am I
want to be. I want to be that person.
I
don't want to be the rule follower and that, that says this is how you have to be. Like, no, she was right. She was right.
Yeah.
She also did some other things that she's passed on now, so I know she's with me now watching. Like, she did stuff that was so rogue.
Come on, now I'm going to be curious about,
so
like, come
rogue,
on, give me this grandmother's badass.
Oh,
I want to know about this grandmas. That's what.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, like.
Can you share another one? Like, that was
15,
like amazing.
She had to leave school because she came from a family. She was the 9th child out of 10.
Okay.
Their parents really loved each other.
Sure.
So she had to leave school, so she left at 15. She honestly created an empire, like a business. So the business that she created, it was called the Tower Christmas Club. And so what it was like one of the first businesses, I can't say, I believe, I could be wrong, but that was based on a catalog system. So at the beginning of the year, you would sign up to be part of the Tower Christmas Club. And then at the beginning of the year, you'd get a catalog of everything and it was blankets and crockery and what house and whatever you needed. And it was a lay-by system. So it allowed black people to get whatever they want. So they chose whatever they want off the catalog. And it was the Tower Christmas Club. So you had a whole year to buy whatever it was. And then when Christmas time came, you got your big parcel of whatever it was that you were paying off over, and
the course of the year.
Over the course of the year. Novel. In those days, that was 50 years ago, longer, because I'm 50. So it was done before I was, And again, that was saying we have to help people achieve their dreams, even if it's in small increments. So I didn't know much about the Tower Christmas Club other than I just always, my mom had tons of stuff from the Tower. There was always something from the Tower Christmas Club in our house, but, I forgot the question. Rogue, my grandmother, rogue. Okay, so like other things is when like she wanted to get money out of South Africa because she knew, I don't think she's passed on now. So Granny, I'm not getting you into trouble. I hope not. But she knew she had to get money she just knew she had to get money out. She had to start, establishing something for her family outside of South Africa. And so she used to go and she used to smuggle diamonds in her cigarette. She would take all tobacco out of her cigarette and stuff diamonds in and then stuff the tobacco back and walk through customs just without a care in the world. And that's how she smuggled money out of South Africa. She also once did a complete U-turn in front of a policeman, an illegal U-turn, and he stopped and she said, "I never did it." And he said, "I just saw." She said, "It couldn't have been me."
Oh my God.
And
were you
confused.
there when this is happening? You're seeing this?
That's what someone told me that story. They said, "This is your grandmother."
Did she give you that look before she talked to the policeman, or you weren't there?
So other people telling me about how rogue she was and how brave she was. And they said she told it, literally did a U-turn in front of the traffic office, and then told him he's wrong, and convinced him that he was wrong.
Did they call traffic lights robots?
Yes.
In those days
They still do robots.
Robots?
So cool.
Yeah.
Because they look at the stuff I work with, they go, "Why do you call them traffic lights?" And it's like, "Oh, okay. What do you call them?"
Funny.
Robots. So these are this is a great memory. This is a great beginning when you're young. You've got all this love around you, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so 8/29, you say there's nothing in South Africa to stay for. And ready to leave. So along that line, there are a lot of sort of experiences that kind of get you from there's a lot of love here to it's time to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't a switch one day. It's gradual. So you got this family around, and they're doing. Where along the line does all this I've got all this become
less of an attachment, I guess?
Yeah. I think it was. When I got married and we were starting to think about starting our own family, and it was, this is not the place where I want to raise my kids. I don't want my kids to, I remember saying to my husband, when we go to Canada, I want our kids to thank us for taking them out of a place that was so, I want them to know that we're colorblind. I want them, I want our kids to thank us. And he said, "I don't want our kids to thank us. I want them just to know that this is just where we were. They don't have to thank us for taking them away.
Right.
This is just the life that we're creating for them, when we'd go back, my boys honestly couldn't understand the first, because we used to go back every single year because I took them away from their family. And that was the hardest thing about immigrating was birthdays. Birthdays were the hardest days for me because they didn't have grandparents, they didn't have aunts
everyone
and uncles.
Would normally come and celebrate them.
All we had was each other. And so those were very sad, beautiful, bittersweet days for me. So we used to go back every year until they were, I think my oldest was 14 when we stopped going back every year. But we'd go there and they couldn't, one day they said, "Why do you keep talking about black people? I only see brown people." And I was like, oh, there was just a realization for me, they didn't get it. They couldn't understand. For them, color was just color. People are just people. But I think that's the family that I was raised with. It was, you can be rogue and be okay. You don't have to follow.
Be rogue and
you
be
can.
Okay.
You can be rogue. You can be rogue. You don't have to follow the path of that's set out for you, or the definition of success. You can do things your way and be okay with it. And I wasn't always okay with it because I didn't understand why no one chose me.
What do you mean? Why no one chose you?
When I wanted to get a job, as a law clerk or articles or something like that, all my friends were getting jobs at these law firms. No one was choosing me. And I knew that I was smarter than some of them, only academically because my grades said I was smarter. Doesn't mean that, so intellectually maybe academically I was, but I couldn't understand why do people get better jobs than me? What's wrong with me? And I realize now it was the best thing ever because I got it once in a meditation, is that you can't work for somebody. You have to work for yourself. You always have to work for yourself. You have to do things for yourself. And it was like, oh my, that's why it wasn't a punishment. It was my growth. And I'm so glad because usually when I have worked for people, I've always felt like I'm a circle or I'm a triangle in a round pigeonhole. I just don't fit 100%. I like it there, but I just don't fit properly. And so even when I became a lawyer and I wanted to work for somebody, it was like, it wasn't happening. So I went, fine, I'll just open up my own law practice. So that's what I did.
When that's happening, you're able to look at it, you're able to look back on it now and say this. But while you were going through it,
it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Who were you actually thinking at that time?
I suck.
Oh, I'm growing.
Mm-hmm. No, yes, I suck. It's like really, like it's horrible.
Was this in South Africa?
It was
this
in
here?
South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is back in South Africa.
Yeah, back in South Africa. Was a whole nother story trying to find a job here.
Right.
But when those things happen and in the moment that it's happening, why did I become a lawyer? I became a lawyer because there was nothing else I wanted to do. It was the only thing I wanted to do. It's like, there's nothing else to do. I may as well just try that. It wasn't like this burning desire to be a lawyer. It was, we went to an astrologer when I was 18, the rage was to go to this astrologer. Her name was Sharon Eisenhenker.
Okay.
And everyone, matric is our last year. That's what we call it. Grade 12 is matric in South Africa. Yeah. And everyone and their dog were going to Sharon Eisenhenker because she could tell you what your career should be.
Okay.
Right? So she's an astrologer. So off we trotted, my mom and I, to Sharon Eisenhenker. And Sharon said to me, there are 3 jobs that are very clear cut for you, she said. She started off with I don't know what order she did them in, but she said, 1, you could be a librarian.
Look at her roll her eyes.
I know, right?
There's a
How do you
story
feel
there.
about that
I'm going
one?
to come back to that later. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt your thoughts.
She's so vague. I don't know.
What was that look?
The second one was you could work in a bank.
Mm-hmm.
I barely know what's in my bank account.
Okay.
So that wasn't going to happen. And then she said, you could be a lawyer, And she said, actually, the lawyer is probably the best thing. She said, because when we look back, she said, you've actually done this many, many times. She said, in your past lives, you've always been like a wise woman. You've been a judge. Like this is actually where you're meant to be. She said, those other 2 you'll be good at. But actually, lawyer is, you've done this in so many past lives, so often. It's just where you, in fact, she said, have you ever just opened up a book and said, I know what's in this book, but you've never seen it. Well, yeah. She goes, you probably wrote the book, So she said, I was like, okay, well, there's nothing else. I don't want to be a banker, and I certainly don't want to be a librarian. So, okay, if you say so, I'll be a lawyer. That's
You went.
How if it wasn't for Sharon, maybe I would be a librarian. I don't know what I would be. Sharon told me that's what I have to be, so that's what I became.
So you start off by somebody telling you what you're going to be, and then you find yourself later, people not accepting you for what Sharon said you're supposed to be.
I think people always accepted me. Actually, let me rethink that.
Because you just said you couldn't find the job at first.
But I couldn't find a job not because I was a lawyer. There was just something about me that people didn't want to hire me. But I actually think it was something about me that was I didn't want them to hire me.
Right, of course.
Right.
There's that.
So
but it doesn't feel like that when you're in the moment.
No.
It just feels like rejection.
When you're 21 or 23 and everyone's getting jobs and you're not,
Okay,
you
so
think
hold on.
you say,
So you're 18, you go to see Sharon.
Yeah.
By 21, you're looking for work at law firms?
No, how does it work? Look, I'm 50 now.
Okay,
This is like
well,
where you really
okay,
said
I
you'll take
know.
me back.
I see
okay?
these. I wonder about those kind of gaps.
I had to do 3 years of an undergrad,
Right,
then 2 years of an LLB,
right.
and then it was 2 years of articles, I
Right.
think. So it was like almost 7 years
Right.
altogether. Could have been a doctor, except that I'm not too keen on anatomy. So I remember I didn't want to get married until I got my law degree. So I said to my husband, I'm not marrying you until I've got my law degree. And I got married when I was 24. So I was 24 when
You
I
started
got
to
my
look
law
for these
degree, and I
jobs
started looking for these jobs.
Okay.
And I was so lucky I got married because I had these student loans and we got wedding gifts. And I said to my husband, can I pay off my student loans with our money? And he went, yeah. I went, okay, good. So that's how I paid off my student loans. But
it's one way to do it.
yeah, so marriage.
Marriage to pay off your loans.
So yeah, I was 24. Like at 24, you still don't know who you are. You still, you know.
Is that how you felt at 24? You didn't know who you are?
24, I'm 50.
So you still don't feel like
Still sometimes
figuring
don't know.
it
out.
Still figuring it out.
Sharon
The funny
said.
thing is I remember
Sharon said, right?
I just find this really interesting because that's not always what we hear, right? So there's a huge influencer in the community. Sharon, it doesn't matter what the name is, but in this case, it's Sharon. And I understand that because that happens in other places too. For us back home, there were these sages that would be, people who would go to for like the ultimate advice, and they would set people on paths, and they meant well, they're good at it, so that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
So you, in your case,
And
Sharon,
I'm very
haven't heard
grateful
this in
for
a while.
Sharon.
Of course.
Like I'm so grateful for Sharon because Lord knows what I would have done if Sharon didn't tell me to be a lawyer. But she was right. She was right.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for that because I don't know what else.
What did you and Sharon talk about? Or did you just walk in and she said, librarian, banker, okay, your 10 minutes are
I've
up?
still got the thing.
Right?
Like, I don't understand it. It's just this round circle with all little things.
it's like a astrological reading.
Yeah.
I got a reading done, okay.
You know.
Do you remember parts of it? Because you just recalled some of it as well.
I remembered what was important to remember. Sharon said I'm going to be
That's
a lawyer.
Bottom
You
line,
know.
right.
What else did she say? She said to me, interesting. She said to me, you're never going to be wealthy, but you're always going to have enough.
That's a good place to be.
That's a good place to be.
It's really reassuring,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but like, what is wealth anyway?
Yeah, it's a concept.
You know, because they say you can be a millionaire, but then you're still chasing it to be a bigger millionaire.
Right.
You know, and it's so true. Like there've been times where we really didn't have anything, but I always had enough. And times where we've done really well, and I had enough. You know, I don't know. I'm very grateful for Sharon.
So was there a time when you were trying to apply for these jobs and not getting them? And of course, you reflect on it and figure, okay, in your meditation, which I'll get to in a sec, but was there a time where you ever doubted, what if Sharon was wrong? Or
Wow, that's a great question. No, because once I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, there was nothing else for me.
okay.
That's just.
So you never let doubt creep into it?
I never let doubt creep in because I made my success, and it was my success. I was, even when I started my own little law firm, really a little law firm, it was just me.
This is in South Africa.
In South Africa, and someone took a chance on me to allow me to sort of rent an office from their space. I was successful. You know, I may not have been a millionaire, but my name got out there and I was respected, and it was all word of mouth. I had no money to advertise or do anything, so it was word of mouth. I would never look back and say I sucked at anything. You know, in the moment, possibly I did, but when I look back, but of course there are moments where you doubt what you're doing. You doubt if you can make it.
You did.
I don't know. Anyone who says they've never doubted, they're lying. Anyone who's,
So what were your doubts?
Will I have clients next month?
Yeah.
Will I pay my rent?
It was that close some months.
It's still close some months.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so true. We're always on that edge.
Yeah.
We just get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it. And I think also you just have some kind of faith that it's going to come.
Yeah.
And it usually does.
Because you feel like you're doing something aligned with you too, right?
Yeah.
I think that helps when you're doing something that aligns with what your passion is or what your purpose is, then it helps kind of squash the doubts. But when you're in a structure that's not aligned with your passion and what you want to do, then the doubts, I think, can be amplified even more, because you don't just have to worry about, am I going to have the clients to pay the rent or the checks or whatever, but am I going, I don't feel good where I'm at too,
and then
right?
you look at other colleagues who seem to be really thriving and striving, and you think, maybe I should have. Why didn't I? And it all goes back to the inner critic, and it all goes back to some little trauma that happened to us as a child. And I know I said I had a perfect life, and I did. I had no major traumas that I could go back to and say this was terrible for me. But a small trauma that I only recently discovered that defined how I thought of myself. I had to unpack and redevelop, and it only came to me last year. And so when I was in grade 1, it was Mrs. Sandler. Her name. Like you need to know who the names
I
are.
so
Right?
love the
It's
name.
always
I
the
know
detail.
that. I remember the name. Miss Billings, like Miss Brown. Yes.
Yeah, because
100%.
You reckon that
they
you
were
remember key
important in your
teachers.
life,
Absolutely.
right? Pay respect
Mrs.
to your
Dar, grade
teachers.
2. Yeah.
It was Mrs. Sandler. And
Did she have the glasses and everything too? And
she was
the bun in
young,
her hair?
actually.
Okay.
She was young. She was young and blonde and big blue eyes. I didn't particularly like her, but she was good enough. She was my first teacher. What did I know?
Right.
My second grade teacher, Miss Taurog.
Okay.
She was a spinster.
Okay.
Best teacher ever.
Okay.
She had a magic carpet. And if you didn't understand anything, all you had to do was sit on the magic carpet and she'd come get
That's
you.
amazing.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And it was like a carpet of no judgment. You didn't care who was sitting on the carpet. You just saw something on the carpet. You knew Miss Tarog had to get to them, and you didn't take Miss Tarog's attention away because someone's on the magic carpet.
That's
Okay.
cool.
So beautiful.
Anyway, back to Mrs. Sandler, grade 1.
Right.
So she had this thing on the board, and she, we had this huge big blackboard that like kind of took the expanse of the whole front of the classroom. And on the one side, she had like drawn like fire and flames. And on the other side, she had drawn little flowers, like paradise leaves, beautiful. And we were having a spot test, math test.
Pop
Grade
quiz,
1,
yeah.
right? So it's 1 + 1, 2 + 3, 3 + 3, 4 + 3. I think we hadn't got past 10. We were still only in units. So 10,
Mm-hmm.
and we each had 3 opportunities to answer 3 questions. And depending how you answered is where you would fit on this beautiful imagery that you'd created on the board.
Okay.
So she asked me the first question, I got it right. And she asked me the second question, I got it wrong. So now, third question, I'm not in the flowers. If I get this one wrong, I'm in the fire.
Okay.
I'm scared. And so the question she asks is, what is 2 + 3? And I'm so scared of being in the fire. And I didn't know I could use my fingers.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I only got one question right. And I must have started crying or something because she said to me, just 1 foot. I think she wrote our names. She said, just 1 letter will go in the fire and the rest of it will be outside of the fire. Well, for me, I was in the fire.
Yeah, you're still in the fire.
I was still in the fire. And for me, that defined me as that I'm not good at math. My entire life, I've said I'm not good in fact, I got kicked out of math class so often in high school because if I was kicked out, how could I learn?
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
Why not just do a seedling and then the flower, like the evolution of the plant rather than fire? You know what I mean?
You're going to have to ask Mrs. Sandler.
Yeah, like that's
I
so
don't know where she is
harmful.
now, but those small things, that was a
it's a
trauma
huge
for
thing.
me.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So my whole life was like, I'm not good at math. And so therefore, if I'm not good at math, I can't be a doctor. I can't be a whole psychologist.
Right.
I can't be a whole ton of other stuff because I said, I'm not going to do math at school. I'm not good. So I gave up math for French. But that closed off a whole bunch of other opportunities for me.
What was her name again? Miss.
Mrs. Sandler.
So was it her or was it the fear that got you to get the answer like wrong? Was it the
I
trauma
don't know. It
caused
could have
by?
been the fear. Like I didn't want to get in the fire.
Because you just said you were so afraid,
Yeah.
you forgot the count
My-
with your
I
fingers.
was fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. My brain was firing. Like,
Right.
oh, yeah. So
like it was the fire. The fire.
and
the
no one
fear
said you can use
paralyzes
your
us.
fingers.
yeah.
Right.
Right. So I didn't really. Maybe you shouldn't have to think you can use your
Yeah.
fingers. Right. Like,
It's amazing the power teachers have though around that because I had different experience but similar, same thing, and I straight up chose my career because it had no math.
yeah.
Because I was bad at math.
and I, bet
And
you
I
you're
remember,
not.
and I wanted to be a psychologist, but I'm like, nope, math, can't do it. I'm not good at math. And it
Yeah.
was like,
Interesting.
it was just like no math. Yeah.
And then other things. So
It's really
the school
powerful.
that I went to, a fantastic school, by the way. It was a private school, a really good school. But they streamed us, very big into streaming. Okay. And so the word they used was education. So if you were an ED and you cream of the crop. Best teachers, best everything. That's where the head boy is going to come from. Most of the prefects are going to come from. best of everything, EDU. CNA, bit of everything, good mix of people.
What does EDU, CNA, what does it mean?
That's how they streamed you. That was the word that they streamed you. So the classes, you
Was
are
it an
either
acronym
in
for something?
just education.
Okay, EDU means education.
ED, the first letters of the word education.
Yeah.
EDU are the cream of the crop.
Okay,
Yeah, so
got
that's
it.
so if you were and you were then in that class for the rest of your
Right,
school career.
right.
So if you were in 1E, you were going to be in 2ED. So we didn't have grades. It was Form 1, Form 2, Form
Yes.
3, Form 4.
Yes.
That's
Right.
that's how it is, right? So
Right.
you'd be in grade 9E, grade 10E, grade 11E, grade 12. Like that was your
so
class.
it's kind of like advanced.
Yeah.
We used to call it advanced here, and then
Advanced, basic, and
yeah,
general or
something
something.
like
or,
that.
Yeah.
So we had
And then gifted.
So the thing was the same. Like everyone had the same curriculum,
Right.
but then there was sort of upper grade and lower grade. So
Sure.
I'll get there
Streamed,
afterwards.
right.
But streamed. Okay. So
Yeah,
if you were sort of
yeah.
a really smart student, academically smart, you would either be an ED and U.
Right.
C and A kind of had a mixture of kids.
Right.
And then T, I, and O were let's just get you through high school.
Right.
And then N was remedial. So N was where we had kids with real learning disabilities and all of that. So I was in A. So I was in, could have gone either way. But I thought I was mediocre because that's how they streamed me. That's who my school told me that I was. I was
Right.
mediocre. I didn't belong in ED and U. And fun enough, so many of the guys that were in the TI and O class, like millionaires.
Right.
Right?
Millionaires.
So true.
And then we also, because of the streaming, we sometimes also antagonize the other
Right.
groups because we have
Well,
to.
it's a social thing
right.
too.
Oh, you
right?
hang
Yeah.
out in your group,
Yeah.
right? Your community.
It's us and
Yeah.
then them.
100%.
Yeah.
And
The black and the white and the whatever. It's all like going on in the back of your head as that's happening, right?
yeah.
The division, though, right? From the beginning, like we're just automatically divided and divided and divided into these groups when there's like, it's like, why are they not connecting and connecting and connecting people? Like there's more similarities than there's differences.
Yeah.
And I get so upset when I just hear of all of the ways we're dividing and labeling people when there's such experience and richness, because the streaming doesn't work. It doesn't. I've seen it with my own kids, right? Like
Yeah.
my one son was told he would never go to university in grade 8, and you can't do this. You're not gonna be successful. Don't take advanced classes in high school. And he's like, Mom, I really want to go to university. I'm like, dude, you're gonna be fine. Like, take all the advanced classes. He got a scholarship.
Wow. Yeah.
My other kid, he has serious learning disabilities, but he gets things really quickly once he's got his skills in order. He's told, oh, great, apply to, like he's in high school now and he's made the honor roll right last semester. And they're like, oh, go to university. And every day it changes. One day he's a carpenter, next day he's an electrician, and now he's taking a gap year to play the stock market. I'm like, dude, you're going to be successful no matter what
One
you
way or the
do.
other.
Yeah.
But he's the kid and when he's in grade 1, he told his teacher because he couldn't read and he had a stutter and a speech impediment and all this stuff. And I was right there, and he told her, he's like, I don't need to learn from you. I already have a job. And he did in family business, right? And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just they have such influence on us at such early ages. And look at how, and I know you've had similar experiences with your school stuff, like all of us, it's so impactful.
Yeah.
What it does.
Yeah.
So you have all this time as you're growing up. What I see as a common theme is that you're seeing systems and systems and
Yes.
systems
Yeah.
and systems that tell you what you are and what you should think and what you should be and
so
what you
smart.
can do.
Yeah.
Am I? But
You would be
it's
in you for sure.
It's talking
ED or
about
you. You'd
He's
be
an
in
ED.
one of
Oh,
those.
Yeah.
for sure I would not be. I can tell you, and I was not.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, right? That I didn't walk. It's funny, my son tells me this nowadays. He goes, you use a term a lot. And I'm like, what do I say? He goes, you refer to them as smart people, but you say it in a really derogatory way.
Yeah.
I go,
Smart people.
I don't need
Yeah.
smart people to tell me what to do. He's like, why do you say that about smart people?
Wow.
Yeah. And I go, because I look around and I go, I've been told that I'm not smart
Wow.
by people who then are defining smart.
Yeah.
And I go, and they run the world. And I'll go, look at the state of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go,
Oh, wow.
if they're so
yeah.
smart, then why is the world
The way it
that it
is.
is?
Yeah.
So I got this thing for smart people.
Mhm.
So, like that's my thing. So I'm like, yeah, when somebody walks in and goes, oh, because I got this qualification, I'm going to tell you how it is.
Mhm.
And I go, you don't know your this from your that.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me because you're qualified.
Yeah.
So you could be a lawyer, you could be an accountant, a doctor, or whatever. And so even I am so sensitive to it that I actually watch for this so carefully. Like, I do not believe in putting a title on your business card, for example.
Yeah.
I watch for
I
when
love
somebody
that.
introduces themselves as, I am a this. I go, wait, stop. What are you?
Yeah.
Well, how is it that
You're not your
defines
job.
you?
Yeah.
So I'm uber sensitive to that, but I'm just listening to kind of like your story, and that's why I love your the way that you're taking what's happened from your grandma to her being rogue, you call it.
Yeah.
I love that. My Callaway, my clubs today that I play in golf, they're called rogues, by the way, and I
that's so
keep
funny.
them because they say rogues. So crazy. So, but anyway, I just noticed
Look
this
how
pattern with
connected
you.
we are, right?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I look
And
at
you're
how
both
you
clubs.
just keep you seeing systems after systems after systems. What I'm wondering is while you're going through it,
Yeah.
are you realizing that these are systems? Are you formulating thoughts in your mind at that time, or are you just trying to get by?
I think I'm just trying to get by.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You just get by and getting put down by the system.
Right.
And then just going, well, the system's not working for me. I just have to do it myself.
Yeah.
So hold on. So you see that part right there where you go, the system's not working for me, so I got to do it by myself. That didn't happen in one moment. You talked about going through meditation. You were doing some meditation. So, right? Like you had a moment that you just made that decision right now. You made this formulation. You said, it's not working for me, so I got to do it myself.
Well,
That doesn't happen.
No,
just
but I think in a way
automatically.
it does happen.
Does it?
Because if you're applying for job after job after job after
Right.
job and you're not getting it, then you just start your own business.
To create your own job.
Right? That's
yeah.
going against the system that said we don't want you.
But what you didn't do, which others do, is like, I'm not good enough.
Quit. Yeah.
And they spiral the other way. You went the other way. You didn't say, oh, I'm not good enough. You said, I got to start my own business.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
could have said,
But you started your own business with thoughts that you weren't good enough.
I started my
Or
own
was it-
business, not thoughts that are not good enough.
right, that's my
But
point.
yeah,
You
but
never thought that you're not good
yeah.
enough.
I started my own business with I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
never
I got to
thought-
work, so they're not hiring me, so I'm going to create work. Yeah.
you know,
You never once thought that you were not good enough to
No.
do something.
And you know, so I, when I had my articles, because again, I wasn't getting articles. You know, my friends were going to law firms and getting articles, and my mother, my parents, not my mother, my parents were getting divorced. When I was, it started a long time, but when I was sort of looking for articles, my mother had gone to her divorce lawyer. And so she said to the divorce lawyer, my daughter needs articles. He said, okay, I'll take her. Like that's how I got articles. Right now, this guy,
Wow.
oh my Lord, he's passed on. He was rogue, but of completely the other way. So he wanted to be a doctor. And his parents, for whatever reason, he couldn't be a doctor. So he became a lawyer. But he really wanted to be a doctor. So he loved medical malpractice, but for himself,
Right.
Yeah.
not for other people. Okay, so he was a big hypochondriac. Like if he had a headache, he thought his eye was falling out. You know, if he stubbed his toe, his leg had to be amputated. Like always went to the other end. But he was such a beautiful human being, a very, very, very smart guy. And he was so good to me in some ways and so bad for me in other ways.
Sure.
But he was my anti-role model.
Right.
And role models and anti-role models play the same role. You know, your anti-role model says, I want to learn how I don't want to practice.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for him. And he was such a beautiful, special human being. But he got so caught up in his own drama that it would cloud his vision with everything else. And then he would do things that were ridiculous. But I stood up to him the one time. And I remember walking to his office and shouting at him because he had done something so bad and so wrong. And I remember going in, but he respected me for that.
So before you walked in to to that.
Yeah.
What was your thinking?
Of
was
walking
there,
in.
Was there that fear, would it be fire? Would it be flowers?
Oh, yeah.
Did you
Fire
think
or flower.
about that?
He had
was there a
angered me
doubt?
so much, it was pure, brute, blood-curdling red anger.
Okay, you were just,
There was no
more
You went
fear.
straight to the fire.
There was no
You were-
repercussions,
who
and it was
cares?
like, I don't care what the repercussion is.
See that?
Yeah.
You know?
You just
Like,
had to speak your truth.
I had to speak my truth. And I stormed out. Like, I was a
Right.
big drama.
And you didn't skip a word, right? Like,
No,
came out
I actually
naturally.
just think he just stood there. And then I did the big huff and flung my head and walked out and said,
Right.
and I'm going for the day, and I drove away. But he apologized to me, and he was
Interesting.
wrong. And I actually think he said, maybe you need a vacation.
Mm.
You know?
That's not such a bad thing.
well, I just think it's interesting because I'm talking to you today for the first time, but I see the first grade experience where, there's an authority figure, and there is fear, and then there is that you're 1 foot in the fire.
Yeah.
And then there's fast forward to, by this time, according to chronology, you should be 27, 28 at this time.
Yeah.
And there's no fear. And there's no fire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
There's a fire, but I warm my hands
But
with
it was,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The fire was coming from you. Like,
Yeah.
you were the fire.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you were the storm, as they say, like, you were the storm. Not that the storm is coming and you're not going to make it. One of my other favorite sayings. But
Yeah.
you're the storm.
Yeah.
And you became the storm.
Yeah.
And I think there's
I
something to
like
be...
that. I became the storm.
Well, it's a saying
Yeah.
out there about that.
Yeah.
Something about a warrior one. I'll figure it out later. But it's the devil whispered to the warrior and said, right, the storm is coming and you will not survive. And the warrior whispered back to the devil, I am the storm.
I love that.
I love that. That is
Yeah.
like one of my, I keep it up there. But I just see that interesting in your grandma's strength kind of starting to really develop in you as your reference point.
Yeah.
Right? And that takes you to this point.
Mm-hmm.
In our last discussion we had with somebody, he called that leverage. Like you find your leverage, and your grandma was your leverage.
I think, you know what, the one
Constantly.
thing about my grandma, and it wasn't just me, it was all her grandchildren, she would light up when you walked into a room. It's like when you walked, like we would all visit her. Like
Yeah.
if we had spare time, we would go in, because then she moved into her own place because we moved out, whatever. And so we would randomly just go visit her, and you'd knock on her door and she'd light up as though you've just made her entire day. And all of us felt that way.
Yes.
Like it was when you...
just by being there.
Just by being there. And when I got married, I gave her a dedication, and it was, there's this one, this is how I felt about my grandma, is, there was this little girl was walking with her grandma, and they were walking, and there was a shadow, and her shadow was very small. And she said to Grandma, look at my shadow, it's so small. And Grandma said, but you're looking at it the wrong time of day. Because, no, it was the other way around. She said, look how small, look how big my shadow is, and I'm so small. And she said, but you're looking at it wrong time of day, because you're always bigger than your shadow.
Oh, I love it.
And that was my grandmother. She always made me feel like I was bigger than my shadow in whatever decision I made. And I think when you've got just one person like that in your life that says, I don't see your shadow, I see you, and you're bigger than that shadow, that belief, you just need one person to in your life that instill that in you, that it will push you. And my grandma was that person for me.
That's amazing that you had somebody like that. A lot of people, sometimes they don't find that person around them for whatever circumstance. What do you say to those people in terms of their shadows and themselves? Be your grandma for a second. What would your grandma say?
I think I have to, if she's here, just come, she's going to figure it out yourself.
I love that.
But the thing is we all have it though. Even if we don't have someone, if we don't have someone there to tell it, I think just our shared humanity tells you that. Just by the fact that you're a human being, your shadow is not bigger than you.
Your shadow.
We all have shadow.
The thing
right?
is, the shadow doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It only exists at certain times, because at night you've got no shadow.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Things that people say.
Yeah, but I think, what would I say to somebody who doesn't have that one person? Then maybe they just have to be their own person and find the strength to believe in themselves. And it's hard. Like, it's easy to roll off my tongue.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like what you said earlier. If nobody's willing to hire you, then you just got to open up your own company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If nobody's going to be there to say this to you, then you just got to say it to yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to be your own,
I mean, when I came to Canada, no one wanted to hire me for articles as well, because the Law Society had said to me, you know, I sort of did my accreditation, my conversion, and then they said, instead of doing however long articles are here, 9 months, a year, I don't even know how long articles are here, they said, you only have to do 3 months. Like, we're going to abridge your articles because of your experience and all of that. It's like, oh, right, fantastic. But no one wants to hire you for 3 months, because in those 3 months generally is where they teach you everything, and then you pay them back for the rest of the time. So who's going to hire you for 3 months? So there again, I'm going, what am I going to do? And I didn't know that such a learning curve, right? Just the grades that I got in South Africa weren't the equivalent to the grades in Canada. So I didn't know there's an equivalency chart. I had to do a conversion. So if people just saw my grades, because the education system is very, very high. The standards are very, very high in South Africa. So to get over 75% at university pretty much means you have to be a genius. It's very hard to get over. And I lectured, and I used to write, mark exams. And my lecturer, my boss, said to me, make it very easy for them to get 50%. Do whatever you can. The second they're at 50, you don't give out grades unless they deserve them. So, and that was the marking strategy that we had to use. So when I got 77, 78, 1 or 2 83s or 85s, in Canada, they'd go, oh,
Yeah.
It's not a poor thing. You sweet woman. I didn't know that there was a whole equivalency thing that I had to. So when I would give my transcripts to law firms here, it was, you're not really the candidate for us until I learned that. And apparently you don't just walk in. And in South Africa, it's such a different culture and community. You'd walk in and say, hey, can I just quickly hand this to the managing partner, because it was important that they saw a face to the name. You don't do that in Canada, So I did that, and I upset a few lawyers because I insisted that I see the managing partner.
You insisted. There you are again, going rogue.
And so I had to learn. So eventually, when I wasn't getting articles and wasn't doing it, I had to think, I had to restructure. How do I get in? How do I do it? And then it was, somebody said, it was, he's a lawyer in York Region in Markham. And someone said he's looking for a law clerk. And I said, oh, send him my resume. I'll be his law clerk. And I don't care for how long it is. If it's for a year, I'll work for a year. But 3 months I said to him. So I had an interview with him. And I said, I'll work for as long as you need me to work for you. But 3 months you have to mark off as articles. And so we came to an agreement, and it worked.
That's good.
Good. So you have to be creative. You can't let the door close on you and say, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, it's not working for me. How do I make it work? So you have to go in through the back door. Sometimes the back door is the best entrance, because no one's expecting you.
Yeah.
And so you can't let these things get you down.
I was wondering if you could go back to, because you said a while ago, one of the reasons you left South Africa was because of the violence and that you had a gun placed on you.
Yeah.
And that was one of the pivotal moments. Could you walk through that and what that meant? Because I know I've seen something you've written about it, so I have some insight into this. I saw something you wrote about this recently.
Okay. All right, good.
Yeah, and it was really quite powerful.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a lot of compassion, and there's a lot to learn from that.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that actually, I'm going to just quickly start at the end. Sort of what happened. There was a portal for me. And I didn't realize I'd walked through a portal until a few years later.
Okay.
But that was an opening for me.
That moment was an opening.
That moment was an opening for me.
How old were you this time?
I want to say 26.
In your 20s. Okay. Mid-20s.
Yeah,
okay.
mid-20s. Because I didn't have kids yet, so I must have been, and I still with Peter, so Solar, that was the name of my boss. So,
Okay.
Not important.
Oh, no,
but it's the brain, though. The brain
goes
there
where
when
you
you're
were
trying
in your
to
journey, right? And this
so
sort of thing happens, right?
Yeah, so I was still doing my articles. Anyway, so this particular law firm that I worked for, we had a lot of clients who had no money, and so they would have to get legal aid. So what would happen is I would come in, And they did have to pay like a small deposit. So it was like 300 Rand. So like it was like $30 or something that they had to just pay, and then they would, they would get their legal aid. So the law firm that I worked in was an old house. So there was sort of a reception area. Sort of you walked in, it was a reception area, and then to the left was what would have been the formal lounge was now reception.
Right.
And then the rest of the place, once you walked the other way, it was like an L shape. So my office was at the end of the L, sort of the last office of the L in this sort of L corridor. So these people had come the day before. I hadn't seen these people, but they'd come the day before for saying that they needed legal aids. The receptionist said, here are the forms, complete the forms, come back with your money, and then we can open up a file for you. So the next day, she saw them, she recognized them, and so she opened up the gates, because there were gates, and you had buzzers and all of those things. Yes,
that's right.
Electric gates. And then, so she buzzed them in, and as she buzzed them in, 6 armed men came in, and it had been a whole setup to be able to come in.
That day.
So the day they'd come before was just checking everything out. Like,
get the trust.
Get the trust.
Recon.
See what's in. Yeah. See what's there, who's there, whatever it is. So they came back. And she let them in. I don't know any of this is happening. So I'm sitting at the office, and I shared an office with another law clerk, and we're sitting there, and I can hear like really weird noises happening, and it sounds like a mewing, like somebody crying, but it was like just a really weird sound. Like didn't sound human. I was like, what is going on? And like they were scuffling, and it was like, what is going on? So there, because I'm curious, I say to the other one, I'm just going to go see what's going on.
You see a person running back to the back of the yard, you just follow them to Grandma's right?
Curious.
That's the same person.
It's exactly.
Got it. I totally see it.
So I get up, and there were just so many weird things that happened that day, but I get up, and so the viewers can't see, but so it's like this, okay? So my office is here, there's a washroom here, and there's an L shape, and then there are like 2 offices sort of over there, and the reception area is over here. So you can so I walk down, and I can see this. I can see 2 legs on the floor out of the office, and I can see 2 men standing over the legs. And again, I'm not even thinking that's weird. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Like I'm not even thinking like,
no
what could it
yet.
be? Like no danger yet. And so I don't want to interrupt them. So I want to go behind them to surprise them, to say, I want to get a better angle of what's happening. Like if I'm thinking, did somebody faint? Like I'm not thinking anything else. Like I want to go see. So I go around, and I go, my hands on my hips, right? Because I'm rogue. What's going on here? Okay. And all of a sudden I just feel a gun.
Oh, wow.
On my temple. Okay, and I look, and there's this guy, and I'm wearing this, and I was like, oh, shit. Okay, now I realize that I'm in the middle of an armed robbery. So they pivot me so that I can now, because I didn't know there was a gunman behind me, so they pivot me, so now the gunman's right in front of me, and there's now somebody standing behind me, and they want to tie my hands up. Okay, they want to tie my hands, but they couldn't do it because I'm wearing this leather jacket. And so the leather jacket is not allowing me to get my hands behind my back. So they tell me to take the leather jacket off. So as I take the leather jacket off, and as I'm sort of taking my leather jacket off, I take my engagement ring off my finger. It was like, my husband paid a lot of money for this ring, and you're not going to have it. So as they took my jacket off, I took my ring off, I shoved the ring in my mouth. And I thought, I'll just keep it in my mouth, and, until anything happens. They tie me up, and they shove me into this room. And I walk into the room. My hands are now tied behind my back. My ring is in my mouth. And I look at the one corner, and the one receptionist is she's become comatose.
Yeah.
Like
she's just rocking to soothe herself.
She's rocking to, like her eyes are just staring. She's rocking to soothe herself. I think, okay, that doesn't look good. Okay, and then I look in the other corner. Like I can just see it right now.
Are you afraid at all at this point? Like you seem to be pretty conscious of what others are.
I'm just observing.
Okay.
Like maybe I'm on adrenaline, right? Because I'm just observing what's happening. In the other corner on the floor, the receptionist to let them in is in the fetal position. Her pants are wet. She's peed her pants. And I look at that, and then over there's another gunman who's in charge of us now. And I look at him, and like his hand is shaking like that, you know. And I think, oh my God! Like then I was like, okay, this is serious.
This is pretty bad.
And they've come in. Somebody has already come in and taken off our watch. I'm thinking, oh, you didn't get my ring. Like I'm feeling very smug about myself because my ring's in my mouth. But he starts talking to me because he wants to say he says, where are the keys to your car? Now I have to talk, but I got my ring in my mouth. So I decided I'm just going to swallow my ring.
Okay.
Right? And it was 2 rings. So it was a thin little wedding band and this big clunky, which I've redesigned, but the clunky ring. And I swallow, big deep swallows.
Oh God.
But the little band turns as I'm swallowing and I start choking.
Oh no.
Okay. And I'm literally thinking, I'm either going to die or I have to spit the rings up, which is either way not a good result for me. Okay. So literally said, just keep swallowing. And I swallow, they go down. And then I'm going, okay, what goes in must come out. Like,
okay.
I'm just, you know.
Simple logic.
You know, simple logic. And now that I'm alive, I've swallowed, and I say to them, my car keys are in my briefcase. The other goes out, and I look at this guy, and he is so scared. This gunman is so scared. And all of a sudden, this like blanket, it felt like this blanket of protection just came over me, and it said, you're going to be okay. And I looked at this guy, this poor gunman, and I felt such compassion for him and such forgiveness. And I just knew he didn't want to be there either. And so I said to him, I forgive you. And he looked at me and he said, what? And I said, it's okay, I forgive you. And he started crying. And he said to me, you have to forgive me, but I don't want to be doing this, but I have to feed my family. And I was promised money if I was part of this. And we just started talking to each other as human beings. And there was such compassion. And it honestly was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. I don't even know how long it took, but I couldn't hate him. I couldn't be scared of him.
You could see yourself in him, yeah.
That's it. Like we just saw each other. Both of us didn't want to be here. Both of us were here. It was beyond our control. And suddenly some guy said, let's go. He looked at me, ran out.
That was it.
And that was it. And I was in such control after that. I went to check on the people. I went to see what was happening. I went back to my office, and the other lawyer was oblivious. She didn't even know what had been happening. And the whole time I was like, what, you did what? What?
Yeah.
I was so in control of everything. And the reason why it happened is one of the men came back, and he actually got hit over the head. He actually became brain damaged as a result, but the police came.
Oh, wow.
And I was fine. And I remember calling my mother and my husband. And you know when you get that call, I'm okay, but... and I held it together until my husband walked through the door. And the second I
it was
saw
safe
him,
for you to break down.
I was like just jelly,
Right.
you know. But I saved my ring.
It came out. The rings came out.
Let me tell you.
Okay,
Let me
yeah,
tell
about
you.
that. You know I'm going to ask. No.
One thing I do want to tell you, because if ever,
I swallow my ring. Okay.
if ever you
my watch.
no, if ever you need diamonds sparkled,
Okay.
stomach acid.
Is that it?
They make
My
it
diamonds never sparkled as much as they did, like after I had to clean them, right?
Yeah.
But like, let me tell you.
There's an upside.
That's
Yeah, you
so
can't
funny.
offer same-day service, but
it
you
does
will get
the
a
job.
sparkle. It does the job.
Oh, Nicolle.
So funny.
So it's interesting because in our family, we've also had an armed robbery as well. I wasn't there for it, and I wished that I was, because it was connected to how they got there was connected to me. I was selling something from home, like laptops. It's one of the first things, and they came for that. But I wasn't home at that time, so I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And my dad is
Yeah.
like, "It's a good thing you weren't."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I really
Because you
felt
felt
like I should-
responsible.
and I wanted to be there for them and help them." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Look at it this way: if you were there, who knows
Yeah.
because I
Because
wasn't.
they couldn't do anything.
Well, I didn't do the compassion thing that you did.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, okay, these are our guys are on one side, we're on the other. Let's sort this out or something.
Yeah.
But it's like when you look at all of these like events, it's interesting. Now I understand like what shapes, you know, and what motivates and where your passion comes from to do what you do, you know, today.
Yeah.
From grandma to Sharon to being robbed and having that moment, like the build up, the making of Nicolle.
And I think that's, you know, when I mentioned it was a portal, like when I just had this,
Yes.
it was like a blanket that just covered me, filled me, and said, you're going to be okay. Like there was just no doubt in my mind that I was going to survive this. And it was the most beautiful feeling. And I said that's a portal because I never tapped into it again until many, many, many years later. It was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Quite often it's like that.
Yeah.
So when you reflect back on that, tell me something. From the person who was, I just find this to be two really interesting points. The person who couldn't add 2 + 3, who was told that they
Under
not good
fear,
enough,
yeah.
right? To having
She
the
never
blanket.
told me I wasn't smart. I told myself I wasn't smart.
Go on.
She, in
Right.
fact, was being compassionate by not putting me in the fire. Just 1 foot, just 1 letter,
Right.
you know. But I told myself a story based on that, and then I believed the story. So, sorry, I broke yours.
Oh, well, this is what I was hoping to kind of
Yeah.
uncover for people is that as you speak to it, a lot of us find ourselves in that moment, that same moment where we're paralyzed. You described people in the room who were paralyzed at another point. I see very little difference between them and that kid who couldn't add up to 5.
Yeah.
So not only
Yeah.
have you been that person, you've been in the room with a person like that as well, years later, and that iteration of yourself looks out for those people.
Yeah.
But you were that person at one moment. Whether you were told that or you told yourself that, you were that.
Yeah.
And you then found your way out to that. What would you say, like what is the 1 or 2 things that you would point to say, this is what got me through? From that perspective of talking myself into not being good at math, to having a blanket over me that everything is going to be okay. What would you say are like the 1 or 2 sort of things that are your biggest sort of like, you know, the things that you've learned, or the things that you've come to become aware that these are the things that
Then or
actually-
now?
Well, as you look back on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That helped that evolution, right?
Yeah.
I think just you're always going to be okay. I could have died, but I turned it around. And that's the thing, you know, when I teach mindfulness, you only need 1 mindful person in a room to change the entire room. I was that person in that armed robbery. Because who knows what would have happened if I would have reacted or cried or made him even more nervous or spat out my rings or like
Or
who
condemned
knows?
him for his behavior.
Condemned him, put out hatred instead of
Yeah.
love. Like who knows, you know? So I think
Put out love. That's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put out love instead of
put out
hate.
kindness. So I think the evolution really, when I think like Sharon was right, you're always gonna have enough. Whatever enoughness is at that point in time, you're always gonna have enough. Be it enough smarts, be it enough kindness, be it enough money. You always have enoughness if you can just ground yourself in, well, what do I really need right now? Does that make sense? I think that's looking back, maybe what I get from all of this. Like I've never not had enough.
Even at the moment when you felt that it wasn't enough, that you weren't enough, you still had enough then.
Because I think we define, well, what is enough? Is enough money?
Yeah.
You know, the society says you're only successful if you're rich. But I've got enough compassion and love and forgiveness and kind of me to fill your corridors.
So even in that
That's
moment
enough.
when it wasn't enough for you, that you weren't good at math, that you're telling yourself, you still had enough then.
Of something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Of what?
You know, I think just my grandmother always said to me, you were always that person who brought kids home who no one wanted to be friends with. You know? she always said that about me. She said, you didn't care what other people thought about other people. If you saw those people being targeted, you went and became friends with those people. So I think, and it's hard sometimes. I'm not saying I always, because I want money. Everybody wants money, and I think we have to change our. Money's not bad, and it's not bad to say I want money.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think I've always known that if I haven't had money, I've had enough compassion. Like there's
Doesn't define you.
It doesn't define me. Like there's
Yeah.
enough of me that says you're okay. You're good enough. And I think I'm able to tap into that sometimes. Or people will tell me that just randomly, and then that builds my bank when I need a withdrawal.
I call that life credits.
Yeah,
Which you can
exactly.
bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a whole banking system on life credits. But thank you for that. That's an amazing journey to take you to where we are, which I think is like a whole other episode on, what
Where to
you're
come.
doing. What you're doing right now is so amazing. But now I understand, like Nicolle, the making of this person who is like breaking cycles and bringing change.
Yeah. God, I like me.
You're all right, huh? Especially when it's said that way.
It's so funny when we first met today. You said people walk out of here thinking I did not expect that. I was like, yeah, of course, that's what he said. But it's so true because wow, you've given me a whole perspective of me that I kind of thought I knew, but no, you've actually put it in you've put in a beautiful book named Nicolle with a gorgeous cover that can just
And you can
take it
Put
out.
it that volume.
rewind and press play over and over.
Volume
You can watch the story.
13.
Yeah. Well, I
Thank you.
think there are beautiful stories in so many people out there, and quite often we just just go over it very quickly, not even realizing that it is an
depth of
amazing
it.
story. And in that story, I just see so much inspiration for so many others out there.
Yeah.
And what happens is a lot of people don't share that story.
Yeah.
And they feel like, because in there are some, moments of, there's doubt, there's fear, there's vulnerability, and all those things. And it's even harder for somebody like you because you have this persona as well out there, of who you are to your clients. And gosh, what if they don't see me as oh my God, I don't have it together all the time.
Yeah, I don't not have it. Do you know, but you got me on a very good day.
Yeah.
But you know what I think the key is, the one thing I've always said about myself is that I actually like myself. Like if somebody said to me, hey, do you want to be Nicolle's friend? I go, yeah, I do want to be Nicolle's friend. Like if I had to meet me, I'd want to be my friend.
And that's, yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to be their own friends.
And I think when I'm hearing you speak, something I say to kids a lot is when they tell me their negative self-talk, right? That inner kind of critic in their head is that's exactly it. I said, would you talk to your friend like that?
Yeah.
Would you, if you use those words and pretend I'm your friend on the playground, and would you use those words? Like, no, I wouldn't want to say that to someone. And I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you say that to me? And then they explain all the reasons why. And I'm like, then why do you say it to yourself?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's that's just with little kids, but I think that's so important for all of us, right? Like, be your own friend. You're okay. Like you got it, right? Like you're good enough, and be kind to yourself. Like,
and when you have those moments, like when you put down the phone, like let's say you had a really successful telephone call and you go me, like you don't sit with it. You don't embrace it. You don't bank it like you said. Like you need to bank those feelings because
the other feelings come up, right?
Yeah.
They always come up.
There was this thing I read about the difference between being alone and feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, especially with the way things are today, people feel very alone.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between feeling alone and feeling lonely. And what people feel is loneliness.
Yeah.
And to your point, there's a saying out there that if you like who you are, you may be alone, but you won't be lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And to get people to understand that no matter what their story is, that there's a beautiful person there. You got to start loving that person, and you'll never be lonely again.
Yeah.
And alone is not a bad thing. In fact, there are people who seek to be alone a lot so that
Powerful.
they can, you know.
That's the one I've worked on a lot.
Right?
I know that.
You can
I know
really
that
zen
journey
in,
very
you
well.
can gather your thoughts.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
And not only sharing it with us, but your reason for even coming here together with us and seeing us for what we have been aspiring to be, and helping us to be more of that today. Amazing story. Thank you so much, Nicolle, for coming.
Yeah, you know what? I think everyone needs to know there are more of us out there. And there are more of us. We only hear of the success stories, but we don't hear of the stories that brought them to success, which is usually their failures.
100%. Yeah.
You know, what did somebody say failing is?
Feeling's just learning, or I don't know, something like that.
Or is it first attempt in learning?
Or the first attempt at success,
First attempt
maybe, or
First attempt in learning. That's an interesting acronym.
Yeah.
First attempt in
Well,
learning.
thank you. I had such fun.
We're going to do this again,
Okay.
Definitely do it again.
if that's okay with you.
Right.
We'll make sure we catch you on another good day.
Yeah. Just schedule it in my calendar. Good day.
Yeah.
You'll see I have it labeled.
Right.
Yeah.
Go me. Okay, that's the day.
All right,
that's the one.
Done.